Next up is USC, University of Southern California. Their project, Urban Cooling, bringing climate justice to Skid Row. The team is led by Professors Allison Hirsch and Jared McKnight, and will be represented here today by key team members. Zara Rizvi will get the team started. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Today, Andrea Binns, Laura Lebeco, Eva Millis, and I, Zara Rizvi, are a part of USC's graduate program in Landscape Architecture and Urbanism team, led by Jared Edgar McKnight with faculty advisor Allison Hirsch. We'll be addressing the intersection of climate and housing crisis as they manifest in Skid Row through the following three paths: the challenge, the need, and the solution. The project considers the human experience of condition and policies in Skid Row to design urban cooling strategies focused on both climate justice and community resiliency. Today, LA County is experiencing a humanitarian crisis of 66,000 plus unhoused individuals. While permanent supportive housing must remain an unwavering goal, the reality is that the need is growing faster than the capacity. So adequate housing for LA will take years to achieve, and hence the need for interim strategies. Out of the 60,000, 6,000 people are concentrated in Skid Row, and this number continues to rise. Limited access to shade, clean water, and air-conditioned spaces puts the health and the well-being of unhoused individuals in serious jeopardy. Over the past 4 years, LA has seen a steady increase in the number of heat-related deaths in summer. Although extreme heat often takes place out of sight and out of news, it is quietly the nation's leading climate-related killer. This project responds to a number of Los Angeles County's County Regional Sustainability Plan goals, asserting that including the unhoused community in these goals is paramount. Building off Jared McKnight's master's thesis last year, it is important to be mindful and sensitive when dealing with urban spaces to ensure physical interventions do not exacerbate the criminalization of unhoused by municipal codes that restrict so much of everyday life in Skid Row. Our design choices affect well-being. Moreover, policies that oppress or ignore human health impacts, such as low tree canopy and poor air quality, actually compound into health issues such as heart diseases, asthma, and diabetes, which trigger serious morbidity risk during extreme heat. The LA Mayor's Office had begun to successfully pilot 4 cooling stations that address these issues, but were unfortunately decommissioned, leaving a need for additional measures to maintain and expand the support to adequately address the needs of Skid Row residents.
Our project imagines an expanded cooling station network in Skid Row that has the capacity to better support and provide relief for those who occupy it. From the city's existing pilot process, we've captured the key considerations to help streamline decision-making for designing cooling interventions. We've put together a cooling strategy toolkit called the Cool Tool to guide the design of cooling stations. In designing these cooling stations, community collaboration and participation in the design process are key to incorporate every step of the way. In order to center the 24 experience of houselessness, cooling station design should center the community's needs. The Cool Tool pictured here is a decision-making framework that will help agencies like the City of LA and community organizations bring climate justice to the unhoused community. We've laid out all the important things to consider when designing cooling stations and climate justice solutions for the unhoused. The first step in designing a cooling station is to identify potential partnerships and who you want to invite to the table. The second step is to identify goals and priorities for your station. Third, we offer a budget framework to help track and guide costs as specific features are planned. The largest cost that the city found in their pilot program was staffing, since they provided jobs at a living wage for 24/7 staffing of their stations. Next is to look at what services you want to offer at your cooling station, such as thermal comfort, cooling, heating, providing drinking water, and device charging. You also want to consider the existing conditions and site selection considerations, especially code restrictions such as section 4118 and 5611. Next, you can determine how much space is available and where you would like to place your cooling station. It's also important to consider how permanent and seasonal your cooling station will be. What kinds of staff roles will your station need? And lastly, incorporating community feedback and input along every step of the process.
So what would it look like to deploy the Cool Tool strategy? As part of a week-long workshop, University of Southern California students were paired together with partner organizations in Skid Row, including the Downtown Women's Center, Los Angeles Poverty Department, Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles, and the Los Angeles Community Action Network. After an introduction and discussion with representatives from the Mayor's Office of City Homelessness Initiatives, urban planning experts, and community leaders, teams hit the ground at Skid Row to learn from community members and to explore opportunities. Based on these experiences, each team created a site-specific proposal. In the following slides, you'll see how the Cool Tool guides decision-making at each site, resulting in a unique emphasis based on the needs expressed by that community. At the first site, the team imagined an extended safe space with programs that focus on women's health and well-being by working with the Downtown Women's Center and pillar of the community, Stephanie Arnold Williams. Collaboration with the DWC extends their social enterprise and job training programs into the greater community. These priorities manifested as modular systems that adapt across seasons and build on site assets, including existing community infrastructure established by Williams. On East 5th Street, Team 2 and the Los Angeles Poverty Department elevate the power of visual and performing arts as a means of activism in Skid Row. Local artists are employed to collaboratively design expressive multi-benefit spaces. In coordination with LAPD and the neighboring LA Mission, staff provide round-the-clock access to site-specific services. Permanent, customizable shade structures and key locations along the sidewalk support residents and local services with a flexible, repeatable module made with durable and inexpensive materials that can evolve with the needs of the community around San Julian Park. Site 3 transformed a few parking spaces into a permanent parklet adjacent to the Los Angeles Community Action Network, expanding their community organizing and gathering space. A unique terracotta cylinder and misting cooling system provides relief from the elements and a feeling of enclosure and safety. Site 4 builds on the work of the Refresh Spot, run by Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles, creating a welcoming, large-scale community space across the street at the location of a former city cooling station. A unique origami-like shade structure adapts the site to all seasons and weather conditions. And finally, Site 5 coordinated with Homeless Healthcare Los Angeles' Harm Reduction Center, which specializes in addiction services. The team understood the need for safe places to exist, and that vegetation and seating is a basic dignity all streetscapes should provide for their residents. This site developed a budget-conscious, modular, prefabricated approach with options for quick installations such as tents and supply bins that can extend to adaptable or longer-lasting features like hydrant showers, water fountains, and street parklets.
So for our final 3 slides, we scale back from the solutions to the bigger picture of our approach. Housing and climate solutions have been on the policy radar for decades, but are a big ship to turn. Los Angeles and California have attempted multiple interventions, but these top-down solutions get stuck in red tape. For example, 5 years after approving $1 billion to build 10,000 affordable homes, very few have been built, stuck in permitting, neighborhood resistance, construction delays, and escalating costs. On the contrary, this toolkit flips the solution, moving resources from top down to bottom up. The difference is collaboration with community partners developing flexible solutions to meet immediate needs. This bottom-up approach is drastically more cost-effective when implemented through the local level. LA County spends about $6,000 per unhoused resident per month at $400 to $4,000 per individual service. Comparatively, the cooling stations cost roughly $23 per resident per month, or less than $3 per service. The cost of providing new housing is more than $500,000 per unit and takes about 5 years at least, while the operating costs of cooling stations were roughly $125 per square foot. and take only a few months to create. This cool tool framework streamlines the best practices and expertise from the cooling stations to a practical guide to empower communities to provide for residents faster and more efficiently. The foundation of this model is complete. The next steps would be to formalize the toolkit to roll out multiple stations within Skid Row as a fully funded year-round cooling network pilot. The tool has potential to scale beyond not just Skid Row, but across LA and other cities as well. Temperatures are rising. We want to empower communities to address the nexus of climate and housing vulnerabilities compassionately, effectively, and immediately. In closing, we want to thank our amazing partners, students, community advisors, and USC for their dedicated time and guidance. We are here to amplify their voices as community leaders advocating for real, immediate social and climate justice action in LA and Skid Row. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, USC. Fascinating, intriguing presentation. So we're bringing into the conversation CSO Task Force member Claire Robinson to serve as a respondent. Many of you know Claire as the founding head of the organization Amigos de los Rios. She's an architect by training from Cooper Union and taught at prestigious schools over many years. Claire, you have 5 minutes. You probably have 50 minutes worth of questions, but go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, for one thing, thank you very much to the whole team for such a thoughtful and practical set of action items. I love that. I think, as Eugene mentioned, a lot of these things we want to move forward into reality. And the most recent update from the Biden team in terms of the Build It Back Better contains $2.5 billion for tree equity. And so it seems to me that a lot of what you're talking about depends on a city having excellent natural infrastructure in terms of regional hubs. You know, you're looking at the mini space along the sidewalk. I think these spaces can be seen in conjunction with action required at various scales, like having larger parks throughout the city distributed within every half mile that someone could go and cool down within a bigger tree canopy within more of a living room setting and the other services you mentioned. That would complement really well the stations on the sidewalks. And equal, you know, in importance is like sort of pocket parks or mini, imported from Japan, mini forests, where you get the complexity of within a teeny little tenth of an acre, all the benefits of a forest. So it does cost some time rather than so much money to get a tree going, but part of what this is pointing out to me in the combination of spaces for children or women, spaces for art to really take hold, spaces for the parklet, the origami kind of modular pieces, is maybe to eventually combine some of these together and really elicit the power of creating nurturing spaces where you could sit and feel dignified. And a shade tree, working with City Plants, a group that has been very effective with the city of LA for years, really looking at accelerating some of the tree well cutting and planting in areas where people need the shade most. There's nothing like a tree to provide shade in combination with the shade structures, because sometimes the trees take some time with the broad leafy canopy to do their shade work. But temperature differentials that we've counted in under shade versus, you know, black pavement are on the order of like 40 to 50 degrees difference. And the other thing that I might recommend as part of the toolkit is some cool pavement, just painting. Some of these are kind of experimental, but painting a lighter color onto the surface of the sidewalk where you're working to reduce the ability of the masonry to really absorb heat and throw it back off. Painting different colors that have the ability to reflect and not absorb heat. But I guess in general, my question to you all would be, it sounds like you actually piloted some of these things. Where would you like to go next? Because I think these are imminently doable, and you could get a number of partners, including city plants and other urban forestry groups. Who are some of the partners you're thinking about moving forward with, and what are your next steps?
Thank you so much for all these comments, Claire. We're really interested in the full spectrum of strategies and tools that are available to help address this issue from all angles. I'll also mention that we have another extensive document that's detailing all of these projects even further, so we can look even more in depth at those strategies. As for the next steps, I think the person best poised to answer that question would be Jared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've been really invested in this work for a long time, and I love the idea that you mentioned about kind of incorporating tree canopy into this, because it's such an integral piece of it. And part of our continued and ongoing discussion is really trying to weigh these sort of goals against a lot of the municipal codes in Los Angeles that actually do criminalize unhoused individuals for their existence in our streetscapes, understanding that even in the course of this kind of few-month project, there's been a sweeping overhaul of Code 4118 and actually sort of excluding unhoused individuals from existing within 500 feet of a park space. So how do we begin to really rationalize that aspect of this process and really understand what that means on the ground level? So that's why you maybe haven't seen a lot of trees in the proposals right now. We've been looking at other opportunities, but in terms of sort of those partnerships moving forward, I think our biggest goal is to really find those synergies between organizations that are doing work sort of in the realm of sustainability, looking at kind of urban forestry projects and all of that, but really meaningfully pairing those with community organizations who are on the ground in Skid Row serving this community. I think that's been kind of the core and sort of the heart of the work that we're doing. And our team has been on the ground in Skid Row, and we actually took our entire department there during our week-long workshop to learn from these organizations, meet the community, and hear their needs. So an actionable next step for us is really continuing this process and designing a community engagement platform that can begin to engage Skid Row residents, those organizations that are really working on sustainability goals, and pairing them with sort of the City of Los Angeles, the Mayor's Office of Homeless Initiatives, and also the organizations and nonprofits on the ground in Skid Row, because we really see these as multi-benefit solutions that can not only provide urban cooling, but also meet basic needs for unhoused individuals until the time a housing solution can be developed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, USC. Fascinating.